Hello everyone, Victor is here. So let's take a look at this question. This looks like a fairly common SN1 question, so we shouldn't really have any problems with that, right? So let me draw the mechanism real quick here and predict our products. Based on what we've learned about the SN1 reactions in the last video, this should be our final product, right? Well, wrong. Turns out that those are the only minor products in our reaction. So what's going on here and where did we go wrong? If you form a carbocation intermediate, you always have to first check for possible carbocation rearrangements. The thing is, if a carbocation can rearrange to give you a more stable carbocation, it absolutely will. And since intramolecular processes are typically significantly faster than intermolecular ones, meaning that the processes within molecule are faster than the processes between molecules, the carbocation rearrangement will typically occur before any nucleophilic attack or any other interaction you may think for your molecule. So let's first look at the carbocation stability trend and which factors influence it. And first of all, what is a carbocation? Before we go any further, I want to point out that it's supposed to be pronounced carbocation, not carbocation. Don't make this silly mistake. So, a carbocation is an sp2 hybridized species which is a trigonal planar species in its geometry. And those species are extremely electrophilic due to the open shell nature. Well, they have an empty orbital after all, so there are only 6 electrons around my carbon. And they become more stable with more groups surrounding that empty orbital. So the more stuff we have around our MTP orbital, the more stable the carbocation is going to be. Which essentially means that we have a general trend of the tertiary carbocation being more stable than the secondary carbocation, which in turn is more stable than the primary and methyl carbocations. And here is something important. The primary and the methyl carbocations are so unstable that for our purposes they are essentially science fiction. So never ever attempt to make a primary carbocation in an SN1 reaction or essentially any other reaction that makes carbocations unless there is a really good reason for it. I'm not saying that primary and methyl carbocations are completely impossible, but they're darn close to it. Which brings me to the question, why exactly the tertiary carbocations are more stable than the secondary ones? Is there a more scientific explanation than just more stuff is good? And yes, there is one. The effect we're talking about here is called hyperconjugation. In a nutshell, the hyperconjugation is a partial overlap between the MTP orbital that we have in the carbocation and the nearby sigma bond on the adjacent atom. It only provides a small stabilization effect for our overall orbital. So we want to have multiple of those overlaps to be meaningful. Thus, the primary carbocations, which will only have one hyperconjugation overlap, are still quite unstable. In the meantime, the tertiary carbocations, which have 3 hyperconjugation overlaps, are significantly more stable. So, if partial overlap is good, how about the complete orbital overlap? For instance, if we have a pi bond instead of a sigma bond nearby, wouldn't that be better? And yes, it absolutely would. If we have a full 100% overlap with a pi bond, this is going to be a resonance stabilization. And as the resonance stabilization is more effective than hyperconjugation, most resonance stabilized carbocations are actually more stable than even the tertiary carbocations. Thus, if you can make a carbocation with resonance, always go for it as it's going to be quite stable and will form very easily. So a quick recap. Resonance stabilized carbocations are awesome. Tertiary carbocations are good. Secondary carbocations are okay. And everything else is basically science fiction for our purposes. Thus, we should avoid anything that's not resonance stabilized, tertiary or secondary carbocation when we're coming up with a mechanism for our reaction. Cool. So, what exactly is the carbocation rearrangement though? And the carbocation rearrangements can happen via either hydride or alkyl shifts. The technical term is a 1,2-hydride or 1,2-alkyl shift, and we don't need to go into the details why they're called this way. Just remember that if you hear one of those terms, they mean carbocation rearrangements. So what actually happens here is the hydrogen atom with all of its electrons migrates to the atom with the empty orbital where our carbocation is. Likewise, in the case of the alkyl shift, the entire alkyl group with all of its electrons migrates to the nearby atom. So what I have here in my examples, the green hydrogen with all of its electrons hops onto the nearby carbon. Likewise, what I have on the second example, the blue methyl group with all of its electrons going to hop onto nearby carbon, forming a new carbocation. And while it might seem like we are moving the positive charge around, especially if we are using skeletal structures, in reality we are not. We're moving the groups around, and the new position of the carbocation is a consequence of that move. So remember, it's not the charge that's hopping around, it's the groups. Okay, so groups can hop from one carbon to another, cool beans. Why exactly does that happen? Well, that's a very good question. And the driving force for the carbocation rearrangement is the carbocation stability. The carbocation rearrangement allows us to make a more stable carbocation. And since carbocations are intrinsically unstable, that's kind of a big deal. Remember, carbocations don't have long-term planning skills, so they will only rearrange if we have an immediate gain in stability. So, for instance, here I have a couple of examples. In the first example, we can immediately rearrange the carbocation via the hydride shift to make a tertiary carbocation, which is more stable than the secondary that we currently have. And notice that although I am not showing the hydrogen that I am moving, it is at the new place. So this hydrogen over here is now sitting on this carbon. And also, I used to have a different hydrogen on that position, and that hydrogen is still there as well. So it might seem like I just moved the charge around, but in reality I moved my hydrogen with all of its electrons around and formed a new carbocation. In the second example, however, we cannot make a more stable carbocation immediately, as our carbocation doesn't quote-unquote know that after multiple rearrangement it can become tertiary. We're not going to see any rearrangements. So what we currently have right over here is the secondary carbocation. Next to it we have another secondary and a primary carbocation. So there is no obvious gain in stability right away. There is no resonance or any other effects that can potentially stabilize our carbocation, and because of that there will be no rearrangement. Remember, carbocations are not humans. They do not have long-term planning skills. I know that I said it before and I'm going to repeat it again. So if you have a friend who is lacking long-term planning skills, I officially give you permission to call them carbocation from now on. Alright, so coming back to our original reaction, and yeah, I didn't forget about that. We can now analyze it and see if we have an opportunity for the carbocation rearrangement. The carbocation intermediate that we have in this reaction is secondary, and it is next to a primary and tertiary positions. So if we were to rearrange it to a tertiary position, we are going to immediately make a more stable carbocation right away. In this case, we are going to perform a hydride shift and move the hydrogen atom, this atom with all of its electrons, to the nearby atom. So now my green hydrogen ended up right over here, and the other hydrogen which we used to have there will make it in blue, while that hydrogen is still there. So we moved the hydrogen around and made a new carbocation. As the new carbocation that we have here is tertiary and benzylic, it is going to be exponentially more stable than the one that we had before. So in this example, we're going to have the absolute majority of our molecules undergo the carbocation rearrangement before any nucleophilic attack can occur. So finally, once we perform the nucleophilic attack on our newly formed carbocation, we are going to make our actual final product. And if I want to be completely precise with my language, we're going to get a pair of enantiomers, in other words, a racemic mixture for our products. So remember to always check the carbocation rearrangement in any reaction that involves carbocations. And that's going to be SN1 reactions, E1 reactions, electrophilic additions to alkenes, and anything else that involves carbocations. If you blindly follow the steps in the mechanism and don't ever analyze your intermediates for possible rearrangements, you can easily walk yourself into a trap and lose points on the test by providing the wrong answer. Alright, let's look at a couple more examples here. Here is a reaction where we have a cyclic starting material with a good leaving group, which is our bromine. Pause this video now and work through this problem, and once you're ready to check your answer, continue the video. Okay, are we ready? Let's first write the complete mechanism for this reaction. If you diligently work through this mechanism, you should get something like this in your paper right now. The first step we're going to have is our leaving group, which is bromine, dissociating, forming a corresponding carbocation. So this bromine going to leave, giving me my new carbocation over here. The carbocation that we form in this case is secondary, and it is next to a quaternary position over here. This means that we can have a carbocation rearrangement, making a more stable carbocation intermediate. And as we do not have any hydrogens on the quaternary position, well, for obvious reason, it's quaternary because it's connected to 4 carbons, it'll have to be an alkyl shift in this case. In the course of this shift, we'll move the methyl group into an adjacent atom and make a new carbocation. So in other words, this methyl group over here migrated and is now right over here. So the place where it used to be now is going to be a carbocation because we moved methyl group with all of its electrons. So next, once we have this new tertiary, more stable carbocation, we're going to proceed with a nucleophilic attack on our carbocation with the nucleophile that we have, and that nucleophile is going to be methanol. And as methanol attacks, we're going to form a protonated intermediate, so to make the final product, we'll have to lose that proton to the environment. Notice that in this case, we're actually going to end up with 2 stereocenters in the final product. And as the SN1 reactions scramble stereochemistry of anything that they touch, we're going to end up with a total of 4 stereoisomers in this reaction. I challenge you to draw them all and assign the relationship between them. Assigning the R and S stereo descriptors first might be very helpful. Alright, here is another example. Like in the previous case, pause this video and work through the mechanism for this reaction and then continue the video. Alright, are we ready to check the work? Like in the previous case, we're going to start with the leaving group dissociation leading to the formation of the carbocation. Next, we're going to have a carbocation rearrangement. I'm purposefully not classifying this rearrangement as a 1,2 phenyl shift because it's a little more complicated than that, but for our purposes, the result is still the same. The phenyl group migrates from one atom to another, forming a new carbocation. So if my phenyl group was sitting right over here, now it migrated over there, and I have formed a new carbocation. Also, like in the previous case, we're going to end up with product with 2 stereocenters. So we're going to have 4 stereoisomers for our final products. Make sure you can actually draw them all as well. This is going to be it for this video. In the next video, we're going to go over some more complicated carbocation rearrangements and also discuss common trick questions I often see on the tests. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe and hit the notifications bell to make sure you won't miss any new tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.